IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hi, I'm Sarthak. I welcome you to one more episode of All Things Policy. By 2023, India's power backup market is going to be worth rupees 500 billion. It is expected to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 11.28%. This might reflect the fact that the power sector in India is not exactly reliable. Or else why will people be relying on power backup? In India, less than 50% of villages receive at least 12 hours of power supply a day. Less than 20% of rural locations receive continuous power supply during 5 to 11 p.m. in the evening. Only 66% of locations in megacities receive an entire 6 hours of evening supply in a month. India is ranked 108th out of 141 countries in the electricity supply quality in the 2019 Global Competitiveness Report. All this don't paint a rosy picture of the power sector in India. To discuss the issues in the power sector and some potential solutions to these problems, I have with me Jisha Cherian. Jisha is an engineering graduate and a data scientist by profession. She is a public policy enthusiast. She tries to use her data science background into good use in analyzing public policy issues. She has completed PGP with Takshashila. As part of the program requirement, she worked on a capstone project related to the power sector. The key issue she tried to solve is how to ensure reliable power in India. Hi, Jisha. Welcome to All Things Policy.
Thanks, Arthur. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, great. So, Jisha, before we talk about some of the issues in the power sector, since you have studied this entire sector in details, can you just help us understand the landscape? That means how power is generated, how it reaches our homes, or how it reaches different industrial units.
Yeah, sure. So when you talk about power sector, it comprises of actually three unique. There are three different stages of which are involved. So starting from generation, transmission, and the last mile stage, which is distribution. So these are the three main stages of the power sector. Each is very unique in its own way. So generation is basically the production of electricity from any form of fuel. India has seen a tremendous growth of installed capacity in the last 2 decades. Currently, we have an installed capacity of around 356 gigawatts, which is a mix of thermal, renewable, hydro, and nuclear. 64% of this installed capacity is thermal, 22% is renewable, and 13% is hydro. So when you look at this split, we feel that it's more or less a balanced split between the different forms of energy production. But when you look at the energy, the actual electricity generated from this installed capacity, we see a different picture. Close to 80% of the total electricity generated is coming from thermal power plants, followed by hydro. Even though renewables constitute almost 22% of the installed capacity, their contribution towards actual electricity generated is still less, around 10%. And there are many reasons for why this is so. Right from the duration in which renewable power can be generated and all that. So that is how this is the very high level overview or summary of the generation situation in India. And then comes the transmission. The transmission is nothing but the process by which the power which is generated at the generating companies is distributed or taken to the distribution utilities. So that process is transmission of electricity. In India, transmission requires a license. Generation is delicensed, as in you don't require a license from the government to set up a generating station, but for setting up a transmission utility, you require a license. India actually has several transmission operators, but it is majorly dominated by state-owned transmission utilities. The central transmission utility is the major entity which is created out of the Power Grid Corporation, and which is responsible for wheeling of power from the central generating facilities. And there are similar state transmission utilities that wheel power from the state generating units. Then the CTU also plays a very important role in planning the new transmission systems, also strengthening the existing ones and all that. Since this sector, the transmission, is kind of open to the private sector for participation, we have seen some private sector entities also build and own and operate interstate transmission lines. So that is the situation of the transmission sector. And now coming to the distribution. The distribution also requires a license from the government. So DISCOMs are the entities which carry out the retail distribution of electricity. India has around 70 odd DISCOMs, most of which are state owned. And they enter in agreements which are power purchase agreements known as PPAs with the generators, which are mostly long-term contracts or agreements to buy power from those generators, and they sell them to the residential, retail, agricultural, commercial, and industrial consumers. We do have a few private DISCOMs also existing. So NCR region in Delhi has a private DISCOM, and there are 7 other states which has established private DISCOMs. But irrespective of whether it is a private DISCOM or a public one, in any region, DISCOMs act as regional monopolies, because mostly in one area there will be only one DISCOM which is servicing to the area. Bombay is actually an exception, but in all other parts of the country, DISCOMs act as regional monopolies. And power sale to the consumers it happens at a regulated price. So the price is set by the price of electricity per unit is set for the different consumer categories is set by the regulators, the state regulators. Then there are multiple entities that can obtain distribution license for the same area, provided they have their own distribution systems and infrastructure. Basically, each entity should lay their own network. There is a franchisee model also, which was established in the last power bills, which allows the distribution DISCOMs to have a franchisee model where another entity can act as an agent of the existing DISCOMs and can run the retail distribution for a specific area. So this is the situation of the 3 stages of power, which is generation, transmission, and distribution.
Yeah. So Disha, thanks for this detailed description about the entire landscape of the power sector. Now, I would assume that if the sector has to be effective, it has to be efficient, then all these 3 parts have to work in tandem, right? There should be, there should be proper coordination among all these parts. So what we will do is we'll try to understand what are some of the challenges or some of the issues along each of these parts, right? So in case these issues are there, then let's say there is an issue in the DISCOM, right? It might be impacting the generating units. So all these things have to work together, and then only there will be efficiency. Now, if you come to the DISCOMs, right? So the way you mentioned that at present, there are different kind of regulations for these DISCOMs. Prices are, for example, set by the state regulators. Now, what is the implication of these kind of incentives? I would assume that whenever there are price caps, it might lead to a situation where there is inefficiency. So there might be higher demand, but these demands might not be met, and which in turn can impact the generating units.
Yes. So to understand the business of how the business side of DISCOM works, it is important for us to understand how the pricing works. So as you mentioned, a related price which is set by the state regulators for each category of consumers. So we have domestic, agricultural, commercial, industrial consumers, and for each of this category of consumers, the price of electricity is fixed by the state regulators. So if you look at of all the total energy which is sold by DISCOM, 42% of that is consumed by domestic and agricultural segments, and another 50%, close to 50% is consumed by industrial and commercial segments. Now, when you look at the pricing of these segments, agricultural and domestic tariffs are way lower than industrial and commercial segment tariffs. So basically, there is a huge subsidy which is given to the agricultural and domestic tariffs, which in effect is kind of a cross subsidy, because to account for this low price which is offered to the agricultural and domestic consumers, we charge a higher price for the industrial and commercial segments. Agriculture is kind of charged a flat tariff with a monthly fee and unmetered power for water pumping. So this is kind of this is what we call as a cross subsidy setup. If you look at the residential retail prices which India has, it is one of the highest in the world if assessed by purchasing power parity. But if you look at it in absolute terms, it is one of the lowest across the world. But when you look at the price tariffs for the industry or commercial, it is one of the highest electricity tariffs, making electricity kind of unaffordable for the small industries and entrepreneurs in India. So what is the effect of this kind of differential pricing, where you have one set of consumers who are priced at a very low rate, whereas with one set of other set of consumers charged at a very high rate? This significantly has an impact on the average cost of supply and average revenue that the DISCOMs receive per unit of electricity. So if you look at the data which we have from 2018, for every unit of electricity sold by DISCOM, they incur a loss. It incur an average loss of around 1.35 rupees. So the cost of supplying a unit of electricity is kind of higher than the revenue realized from the electricity tariff to the consumers. So even though DISCOMs are selling 100% of the units purchased from the generators, they are selling at a loss. And if you look at the pricing, this becomes obvious if you look at the kind of the differential pricing that we have. Even though you have agriculture and domestic consumers who are consuming a lot of electricity, so you are selling to them at a loss, but you're not able to bridge that gap which is existing there from the industrial or commercial consumers, even with the high tariff, because there is recently we have had open access system in place where consumers, mostly industrial consumers who consume more than 1 megawatt of electricity has open access. So they are not bound to purchase power from DISCOM. So they can, if you have a captive generation, if you have your own electricity generation setup, you can get your power source from the captive generation plant. So the DISCOMs see a lot of their so-called valuable consumers move out of the DISCOM setup, whereas a lot of low-value consumers, which don't really bring in revenue, which is agricultural and domestic consumers, they consume a lot of power. So this imbalance, drifting away of high-value consumers with stagnant or high-consuming low-value consumers, see the revenues of the DISCOMs getting affected a lot. So if you see aggregate losses for distribution utilities increased by 44% from 2017 to 18.
I think, and one more interesting point here is, since you're saying that for every unit they're making a loss of 1 rupee 35 paisa, and I think sometime back you mentioned that most of these DISCOMs they are again owned by the state governments. So indirectly, what is happening is the huge part of these losses are losses of the state governments, because they are the ones who are owning these entities. And again, there were some estimates which point out that the total losses that DISCOMs incur is in the range of somewhere around 4,80,000 crores annually. So this is almost around 3.3% of the total GDP.
Yes.
And if you look at it, it's one thing is they're making losses. The DISCOMs are making losses, but at the same time they're creating different. I mean, this entire mechanism creates different kind of incentives or different kind of rather disincentives for the different players, right? As you mentioned that there are different kinds of consumers in India. I mean, we have categorized consumers, agricultural units or industrial units. The households all are priced differently. Now, for agriculture, we are saying that there is some form of subsidy. There is a flat tariff. Now, whenever there is a flat tariff, that means those who are in agriculture, they're getting electricity, but they might not have to pay as per the units that they are consuming. They will just pay a flat rupees, some flat charge will be there for the entire month. Now, this can lead to situations where you will be using electricity, but you will not be valuing it as much. As a result of which, there will be massive wastages. But on the other hand, when the industrial units, they are charged more they're cross-subsidized, right? So it might lead to a situation where whatever the industries are producing, eventually the final cost at which they will produce, it is going to increase because they are now paying for those who are in agricultural sector. And as a result of which our industries also might become less competitive. And generally it is observed that in many other countries, the prices, the tariff for the industrial sector will be slightly lower. But in case of India, it is opposite of that.
Yes.
One more thing, Jisha. Generally, state governments also provide subsidies, right, to these discoms, because the discoms are supposed to provide electricity to the agriculture sector. They are supposed to provide electricity at lower rates. So subsidies also state governments provide to these discoms. Do you have any estimates whether these subsidies are paid on time?
Yeah. So basically, to sustain this cross subsidization and to sustain the books of the discoms do receive some tariff subsidy from the state government to compensate for this low tariff power which is provided to the agricultural and domestic consumers. And this subsidy, so basically the discoms book the subsidy amount every year, and this is transferred from the state exchequer to the discoms. So this subsidy which the discoms have been booking has been increasing year over year, which is putting an additional burden on the state budget. So the tariff subsidy which is booked by distribution utilities increased from around 93,000 crore in 2017 to around 1 lakh crore in 2018-19. So as a percentage of total revenue, the tariff subsidy booked by the utilities increased from 15% in 2017 to around 17% in 2018-19. So the year over year, the subsidy that the state governments have to provide to the discoms is increasing. And this is not, so the state governments have not been able to release all these subsidy which the discoms have been asking or they have booked. In 2018, only 90% of the subsidy booked was received by the discoms. So there is actually a revenue constraint or working capital constraint which the discoms are really facing. And it is not just I would just like to add one more point. So it's not just the tariff issues that bleeds the discoms. There is a lot of issues with the efficiency also, with respect to the losses that they incur, which are known as the AT&C losses, which is the difference between the energy that the discom is able to sell versus the energy that they are able to collect money on. So this difference arises from the billing efficiency, the metering efficiency, the collection efficiency. All that is responsible for this AT&C loss. India has an average AT&C loss of around 22%, which is basically if the discom is able to sell 100 units or the consumer. The 100 units of electricity have been sold, but the revenue realization happens for only maybe 78 units of that. So in between, the rest is you're not able to bill properly, you're not able to collect, realize the money properly. So all that losses happen in between, which again adds on to the revenue deficiency and the mounting debts of discoms.
Yeah, so basically the final point here is that discoms are bleeding and they have huge amount of losses right now. And these losses are because of one thing, because of the kind of cross subsidies that they have to, the cross subsidy regime that is there because of price caps. And then another thing is the government says that they will be providing subsidies, the state government, but they don't pay them on time. And on top of that, there is massive amount of AT&C losses because again, our mechanisms are not efficient. Billing efficiency is not up. There's no billing efficiency. The collection efficiency is also quite low. So at present, the discoms are making huge losses. And as the discoms are making huge losses, it also is impacting the power generation units. Am I correct in this?
Yes. Because power generators act as discoms are the buyers of the power for the power that the power generators generate, right? So if the discoms don't have the required working capital to make that purchases, to pay the bills, that directly affects the power generators. So even though we saw a lot of, as I mentioned before, in the last 2 decades, we have seen a tremendous increase in in the installed capacity of for power generation. But when you look at the demand has also increased. If you see the similar time period, we see that the demand has also increased in a similar fashion during that time period. But one thing that we notice is that even though the installed capacity has seen if you see the visual of how the capacity has increased across years, it's an increasing trend. But something which is unique or interesting is that the utilization of that capacity has actually decreased after around 2009-10. It shows a decrease in the plant use factor. Basically, the utilization of this installed capacity is kind of decreasing in the recent years. So that's a trend that kind of it's striking, because even though we have a deficit, power deficit, that we don't meet, the DISCOMs really don't meet the peak demand still. In the last year also, we had a power deficit of around 1%. So even though the peak demand is not met, it is not because we don't have the capacity to generate that much power. The capacity remains underutilized. The plant utilization is around 60% that we have. So the capacity remains underutilized, but we have power demand from the consumers which are not met by the DISCOMs. And that is precisely because the DISCOMs, don't have the purchasing power to really buy electricity from the power generators and meet. The purchasing power is the major factor here. So by the end of 2019, DISCOMs had an outstanding debt of around $9.9 billion to thermal power plants and around $1.3 billion to renewable generators.
So it is interesting that in case of India, we can generate a much more amount of power. And since India is an emerging economy, growing economy, the demand for more power consumption is also increasing. But the problem is the demand and supply, they are not able to, they are not balancing each other out, because in between, there are certain entities like the DISCOMs which are not able to ensure that they are able to pay for the power which they can provide it to the consumers. So this is a very interesting problem. Now, is there any way we can address this?
Yeah. So when you think of what can be done to kind of slightly improve the situation here, so I feel that the biggest restrictive factor for India's electricity sector is the fact that it is still a very highly regulated sector with no free markets kind of working, neither in the retail nor in the wholesale electricity trade. So we have in the retail sector, we have DISCOMs which kind of act as monopolies, and on the wholesale side, which is buying power from the generators by the distribution utilities, it is also working through long-term contracts which determine price for a very long time period using certain mechanisms, using ABP mechanism. But still, there is no price discovery that happens, even though these contracts are awarded through bidding. But it's not a real price discovery that happens, which considers the prices are set for like a very long duration. So there is no real market based price discovery that happens neither on the wholesale nor on the retail side. And the private participation is very limited in the retail side. In the wholesale side, even though the generation has seen a lot of private participation, that it's not fully working. Since the full pipeline is not working, the generation, the involvement of private entities on the generation side is still not becoming really fruitful. And the energy mix also is given the situation that we are currently in and the impact of climate change and pollution and all that, it should really be thought through as to what kind of energy mix India requires, and how can we have policy, not just set in a way that we have the right energy mix, which is market driven also at the end of the day. So on that, when you come to the retail side of it, what kind of changes or what kind of policy changes that we can have to increase the market participation on the retail side? The first one, as we discussed a lot, would be to kind of deregulate the electricity prices. So currently, the state regulators are responsible for fixing the tariff for the different consumers. So this kind of electricity of price setting should be done with. And there are actually in the national tariff policy in 2016 it prescribed the tolerable expense of cross subsidy that we can have, and it even brought it down to 20%. But we really require an updated tariff policy that completely deregulates the retail electricity supply pricing, and the supply entities that kind of cater to the consumers should be given the freedom to set the prices according to the market mechanism. And the SCRCs can be for the initial, so at least till we have some competition available on the retail segment, we can have SCRCs set the maximum, the ceiling price. But once we have a situation where we have multiple supply entities competing to acquire consumers in a region, that also is not really required, because the pricing and the competition among the retail the supply entities will kind of determine the price. So this is the first, I think, recommendation from my side, which is a complete electricity tariff deregulation.
But say, one thing, Jisha. So what you are trying to say here is, so those who are going to distribute power, they are also going to supply power, or how is it? The supply and distribution should be same, or it should be again bifurcated?
No. So this is the second major reform, or second major change in the structure which is required. So currently, so there is no way you can bring in competition if you have kind of a DISCOMs act as retail monopoly. So the government tried different methods to bring in competition on the retail sector. So just by making deregulated price, we cannot expect multiple players entering the retail sector if the DISCOMs kind of act as monopoly. So the requirement currently is how if a private entity wants to start a DISCOM setup, you need license, and you can only act as a DISCOM only if you own the entire distribution network. Only then you can supply electricity to the consumer. So this is how currently the setup is in place, that even though you have the government allows multiple distribution entities or distribution license for the same area, provided each entity uses their own network. They build their own network and infrastructure and uses that infrastructure to supply electricity to the consumers. This kind of a parallel license is actually duplication of resources, because you really don't require multiple wires to take electricity to the home. So the way for that is why I think private entities are not very keen on entering distribution, because the investment which is required would be huge, because you have to set the whole infrastructure yourself and then start supplying electricity. So one way to kind of limit or kind of ease this transition is to bifurcate these two responsibilities. The first is purely supplying electricity to the consumers. The second is the distribution network. So you separate these two, the content versus the carriage, and you create two separate entities. One set of entities which only supply electricity to the consumers, which are known as supply utilities, and the other one which manages the distribution, which creates, maintains, operates, manages the distribution network, which are the distribution utilities. So this can kind of ease the participation, the private participation, the entry of private participation.
And there can be competition between multiple players, and it can lead to, I think, better price discovery.
Yeah, so there should be proper segregation between the supply license and the distribution license. And once this open carriage is implemented, the upgradation of the grid, the digitization, all can be implemented, and the DISCOMs, the distribution utilities, should be responsible for that. So once the distribution lines are separated, whichever supply entity wants to reach a consumer, they will be using the distribution infrastructure which is set by the DISCOM utilities, and they would be paying the required wheeling charges to that DISCOM. So that's how the distribution entities would be making the revenue stream of distribution entities would work, and for the revenue stream of supply entities, they would be coming from the consumers to whom you're supplying electricity. So this is a bifurcation which can encourage the entry of private players and can bring in more competition and competition into the distribution segment. So now coming to the wholesale market, which is basically the market of where the generating companies sell power to the supply entities. So currently, 90% of the electricity is traded in the form of long-term contracts, power purchase agreements, which is entered through following an ABT pricing. So there is an urgent need for the government to initiate some kind of a wholesale electricity market reform that can increase the market share of power exchanges to at least 60% in the coming 2 years. So the need for having the wholesale market function effectively or efficiently is that currently, because of the PPA system in place, we don't really dispatch the lowest price power at any given time frame. So because the DISCOMs have already entered into an agreement, a long-term agreement with the generating companies, most of the dispatching is self-scheduling based on this long-term contract. But even though you have a low-priced renewable energy which is available at that time frame, still the DISCOMs wouldn't be able to cater or buy power from a low-priced renewable source, because they have already entered into a power agreement with another power generator, mostly thermal based on the PPAs. So the current system of PPAs don't really enable the lowest price dispatch happening. And this is one of the reasons why renewable energy contribution towards the overall energy sector has not increased, even though we see a huge increase in the install capacity for renewable energy. So how this can be tackled is by making sure that the wholesale market for the electricity function properly, and making mandate and giving a transition period of maybe say 1 or 2 years, after which during which the existing arrangement of self-scheduling will hold good, but after which all generators, even with PPAs, as well as the DISCOMs with whom, or the supply entities with whom they have contracts, should be mandated to participate in a day-ahead market-based economic dispatch system. This transition period is really required because this will enable DISCOMs to get accustomed to the market dynamics and prepare for the participation in such a wholesale market. So once this transition period is over, the DISCOMs and the GENCOs would be all the scheduling should happen through the wholesale market itself, and based on the price discovery that happens there, and any price differential which is different from the existing PPAs can be settled out of this market. So this is how one way of nudging the DISCOMs and the generating companies to have a wholesale market-based, power dispatch rather than long-term contracts, which can enable price discovery and can help the renewable sector also in increasing the contribution. So to enable the kind of reforms or market reforms which are, especially the wholesale market reforms and even the retail ones, you require actually high quality grid infrastructure and high quality metering infrastructure. So currently, India has taken up the implementation of smart meters and also the implementation of smart grids. But the pace at which this happens have to be slightly higher. The implementation of smart meters would definitely attribute a lot towards reducing the AT&C losses and make the functioning of DISCOMs slightly better, because theft is actually a huge contribution towards all the losses that AT&C losses that we face, and the implementation of smart meters would definitely help in that way. And regarding the digitization of the grids, if you don't have grids that measure and give accurate data about the power that is transmitted through them, which the whole setup of wholesale markets, and it would be very difficult without proper grids that gives us information about that has data on the power transmission, and also information about grid failures or all of that components, it is very important that we have high quality grid infrastructure, which can enable in the upgradation of market functioning also. So these two are actually kind of a prerequisite for the market reforms to function properly, and that can help as a motivation or kind of for the private sector to invest more and participate also. So these two, I think, are areas where we should have some kind of investment and fast track the digitization process.
Yeah. So digitization is important, or else, digitization and again, data related to collections, data related to power consumption, all these things are very, very important. Or else there might not be much incentive for the suppliers to supply electricity. They might not be even able to find out how much they are selling.
Yeah.
So all these market reforms, the retail market reforms, wholesale market reforms, and digitization, all these things have to go hand in hand. So the point here is, in case of India, power generation capacity is there, but whatever installed capacity is there and how much demand is being met, there is slight difference here, right? So there is a slight discrepancy. Yeah. So right now, the power sector in India remains underutilized, and at the same time, our consumers are underserved. So maybe the price of power is low for certain category of consumers, but at the same time, the quality also remains low. And the suggestions that you have given can help us transition from this particular phase where it is low cost, low quality, to the phase where the quality is better. Those who need power, they should be able to get power. And so thanks, Jisa, for this nice analysis of the entire power sector landscape, and for the recommendations that you have given. To the audience, thanks for tuning in. We'll meet again in one more episode of All Things Policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Taksashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week, Siet Tires and the Whole Truth Foods. We really appreciate the support. So this week, tune into This Round is on Me with Gauri Devidayal. She invited Sonal Holland, India's only master of wine, and they discussed the goodness and business of wine, the pros and cons of being women in the hospitality business, and motherhood. On The Traveling Professor, Siddharth Deshmukh looks at evolution of search and wonders how voice search might change things yet again. On Advertising is Dead, Varun Dugirala featured Anirudh Singla of Pepper Content. He shared his perspective on the term content and how he sees it going forward. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vinny spoke to Ayushman Sinha, head of Represent, a music talent management agency. He spoke about life as a manager and about nurturing new talent and paving a progressive career path for them. On Cyrus Says, we had entrepreneur, businesswoman, and Ruckus Avenue radio host Alexandra Masur. They discussed ethnicity, life as Desi American, Seema Auntie's matchmaking show, and a lot of other fun stuff. Also, IVM has an hour every Sunday on the Ruckus Avenue Radio Network, a US-based radio station that caters to the South Asian community. It's available on Dash Radio, and you can catch the episodes on the IVM Likes feed every Monday. On The Habit Coach with Ashton Doctor, Ashton asks us to commit to sleep and prioritize it over every party, work deadline, or binge watch session, as it is a crucial time when the body slows down for maintenance and recovery. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Feeling overwhelmed, anxious, struggling with too many obstacles, don't know where your life is headed? Well, if you are dealing with one or all of these, tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast, because in each episode, I share a life lesson, a life hack, a pro tip that can help you get your life back on track. All episodes are available on the IBM website, IBM Podcast app, or wherever it is that you get your podcast from.